Okay, now I can see you.
Yay!
Taylor.
I am trying to figure out this screen. Okay, that's fine. Whew. I'm supposed to have up. That's why. There we go.
Oh, there's a lot going on over here. Apologize for the noise.
No, you are fine. Okay. All right. Looks like, well, whoever else shows up, they just show up. I'll go ahead and start. Welcome, everyone. This is the From Chaos to Clarity. This is your Q4 growth plan. This is the big one because we are going into the holiday season. And before we dive in, I just want to let you know that your time is extremely valuable. And I am definitely someone who likes to get to work and not with all the chit chat and the fluff. And so it's not another session of just, I don't know, clicking and very surface level things. And so I'm guessing you're here because of just the holiday season. So either you made money last season and you want to make more, and maybe there's things that um, you want to change, fix, tweak. A lot of the times we really want just confidence going into our actual campaign. And that's the big one. So when you are launching into Q4 for that holiday season, you do want to have that confidence going in. And really just the sanity, because we're always balancing everything. And so getting into it, my name is Taylor. I am the innovation consultant. I am thankfully an award-winning strategist. I have generated a little over $7 million in revenue for various clients over the span of my 10 years. I am an email systems architect for product and service brands. And so I am also the creator of the emotional engagement model. And so we're going to get more into that as well. And my goal is really just helping founders stopping the leaks when they're scaling without burnout. And that burnout happens so much, especially with solopreneurs and small business owners, because you are constantly running off of your own fuel, right? It's either if you don't do it, it doesn't get done. If things happen, if you're sick, the business is sick. If just various things that can lead to burnout. And the main one is not having systems in place so that you can be able to rest and your business is able to continue to grow. And so, marketing strategist here. I've been doing this for over 10 years, and I'm really excited just to be able to work with different brands, but also chit chat with you guys today. And so our agenda is the first thing is we're going to break down where your visibility is actually breaking down. All brands need visibility, but we're going to break down what's going on with yours, and then we're going to slide right into that EEM model, which is that uh, emotional engagement model, and then this is really to figure out where your campaigns are stalling and where in the planning process or even in the execution process where something is falling short. And then mapping out that expansion dossier. And so if you have your expansion dossier with you, great. If you do not have it or you haven't went ahead and filled it out and downloaded it X, Y, and Z, you can scan that QR code. That will go ahead and take you straight to the form. Fill out that form, and you should have it in your email momentarily. And then we're going to get into our actual activity where we are breaking it down. This that section or portion is really where we're looking at your current state and then how we can move you to your future state. Of what you're doing and what you actually can do, and then looking at those growth plan options with some question and answers. So nothing too hectic, nothing too crazy. We're just going to walk you through that my engagement model, which is the backbone on how I actually build out campaigns that convert, and why most people skip certain steps in their campaign process, because they may be operating from burnout or desperation or scarcity, etc. And so there's a lot of steps that, not really a lot of steps, there are critical steps that usually get skipped. And so that's the whole purpose of this session today. I feel like you guys let me know if I'm moving too fast. I know I talk very fast and I move through things quickly. So let me paint a picture for you guys. Okay, so it's chaos or clarity, but let me paint this picture. So I had one of my clients, they're running a product-based business. They were in the wellness and lifestyle space. It was a candle business, which is fine. But she had candles, oils, bundles, gift sets, etc. Very much on the self-care space, right? Very creative, very talented, very driven, as we all are. You have to be being an entrepreneur, because this is insanity, just jumping out into the boat by yourself, right? And so when she came to me, she actually had finished two big vending events, right, which was great. Farmers market, and one other conference or physical event, neither here nor there. She did make the sales, as we all do when we are physically present. We do make those sales, but when the event was over, so were her sales, and that was the issue, right? We do not want to have to show up physically every single time to make a sale. It's you want your activity to continue generating income afterwards. And so for her, there wasn't any follow-ups. There weren't any emails. There wasn't an upsell. It was just on to the next event, on to the next hustle. And I know a lot of us can resonate with that, of just, where are we going after this, right? What's happening with our business after our actual event or our launch, right? You launch the first day, there's all this hype, there's all this excitement, and then day two happens, day three, week two, week three. And like even looking into Q4, everyone says, oh, it's, Black Friday. That is not the start of Q4, right? And then what happens? So you have your Black Friday sale, but you also have Cyber Monday. And if you're doing international, you have 11/11 day, which is actually one of the biggest purchasing days in the year globally, right? And so that's when a lot of sales actually happen. And then you have Christmas. And then for a lot of businesses, maybe in that self-care space as well, they go straight into Q1, which is New Year's resolutions, right? Then you have not Thanksgiving, you have Valentine's Day and all these other holidays that continue. And so a lot of times we're just looking at one tree and we're forgetting about the forest, right? So anyway, she had a beautiful brand, of course, but there was no systems and she was constantly becoming exhausted. And that's where that chaos comes in. And so working with her for just a couple of months, in comparing her from when I first met her to after working with her for maybe 30 to 60 days, two different business owners, completely different, same industry, same energy, but her systems were now ready. When she met customers at events, she had certain systems in place that she is having that follow-up where they join the email list. They have the welcome series. She's nurturing the relationship, so she's staying top of mind. It's not just about selling. It's about getting to know your actual audience. It's about understanding where their needs are, but also where their buying patterns are. right? When are they looking for you? When do they need you? Those sort of things. And so we were able to build out the sequence and the system to where they were automatically invited in to her next drop. Right. So now you have multiple sales. It's not just when I show up to an event, this is what I'm doing. Right. It's when you're launching and we're continuing on through there. Right. And so, of course, it's not just about selling, it's the scaling that happens, and that's that clarity. So that's what we're actually figuring out today is like, which one are you building from? Are you building from chaos, which a lot of times that's where we start, and then switching it up to where we're building from actual clarity. And so things that might be happening, right? If you're building from chaos, are you on Instagram and you're selling and then there's no follow-up? Right? Or there's no sales. Maybe you're getting a customer that's today, but you forgot about them tomorrow. And it may not be tomorrow, but maybe you're manually following up with them, right? You have to remember to follow up with this person 2 weeks later. Or even if you have a calendar invite, it's still manual. How are you building relationships? And on top of that, that's one customer. If you bring in 10 or 12 customers, now you're manually following up. That's chaos, easily can be chaos. And then are you busy but not really building anything? Right, you're moving, you got events, you're selling, you're bringing it up in conversations, etc., but nothing is actually building. And then when you're launching, if you feel like you're behind the ball, like you're chasing the ball, you're okay, I have to run and do this, or I have to get this done, or you're just constantly running after customers or clientele, right? Now, building from clarity is a completely different ball game, right? Your campaigns are driving repeat purchases, not just they purchased from you and then you kind of just fell off the wayside or they forgot about you. We're talking repeat purchases. They want they want the next thing that you have, or they're getting it again, etc. And then the systems that you have in place when you're engaging with your actual client, whether that is parents, whether that are women, men of various ages, are you building relationships with them to then grow into loyalty, right? Thinking about the brands that you always buy. Me, I always buy Dawn soap. Always. Ever since they saved those ducks in the Gulf, I'm buying Dawn soap. That's my loyalty, right? And then thinking about other brands that you constantly, you only mess with this brand. I'm not fooling with anything else. This is this brand. They've built that relationship with you, right? It's not always about selling every single time. And then building also looking at how you're running your own brand and your own company. Is your revenue stacking? Right? Or is it just resetting? After an event, after that first day launch, after a campaign, or after maybe you put out social media content, did it just reset and you got to start that wheel all over again? With systems, or with the systems that I actually build, it's about establishing that momentum and then keeping the ball rolling, right? And then really the biggest one is, if you're building from clarity, is your Q4 strategy already locked in ahead of time? This is a great time and moment. This is why we're starting this session, honestly, is so that you're already planning and building for Q4, and then you're nurturing, right? You're building the relationship, you're building suspense going into Q4. So then you're actually securing that pay. I'm about to say paycheck. You're securing the revenue that's coming in for your audience, right? You know what your audience needs. They're already ready, they're prime, they're good to go, right? So that Q4 strategy, it needs to be locked in now. And that's also for the expansion dossier, right? Of where we're going to go into that. So the real questions are you building from chaos, or are you building from clarity? Right? And it's really, it's going to go back down to that follow-up, okay? So looking at why it isn't working, right? And honestly, it's organizational debt, but I'll get into explaining what organizational debt is in a moment. 67% of small business owners say they don't have time to follow up with leads. mainly because it's manual, right? You're handing out cards, you're handing out flyers, you're physically following up in the DMs, you're manually sending out the emails individually, etc. 67% of small business owners do not have the time to follow up with leads. And 9 times out of 10, when someone reads that data, they're like, oh, I would follow up with a lead. But in business, you're not just going one lead at a time. And if you are, you're part of that 67%. Right? It's not lead after lead after lead. You want that continuous revenue coming in, and you want everyone to feel important, to feel heard, to feel seen with your brand, right? Thinking about going to an event and you're sitting there, but then you don't feel seen. The person is only paying attention to the one person sitting in the front, but I'm sitting at the back, right? Now I don't feel seen. I don't feel heard. I'm not even connected with you, right? And then you have 42% of revenue that is actually lost because of poor marketing alignment. It doesn't mean that your website didn't look good. It wasn't that your content wasn't good. It wasn't that you didn't do the editing properly. It wasn't that your product wasn't good or the product line wasn't good. It's the alignment and the drop off in that buyer journey. And that's that emotional engagement model that we'll go into, of being able to understand your buyer journey and then being able to make those conversions and through the actual customer journey, right? And so 42% of that revenue is lost just because you're not aligned, right? So you might get sales, which is great, but you're leaving a lot of money on the table. And that's the big piece. That is the whole session here, because we're not leaving any money on the table, not this year. Okay. I'm not leaving anything. I hope you guys aren't either. And the last point is 85% of product-based founders are stuck in the manual tasks that could be automated. And again, that's that following up with leads, right? That's the just nurturing those leads and those connections, the cold audience that doesn't even know you, to get them from knowing you to loving you, right? And so that's the big piece. And this is organizational debt. It's not just something that is emotional. I know the model is called the emotional engagement, but this is also very measurable. And if you thinking about your own company, your own brand, the last time you did a product drop, did it sell? Right? And did you have a lot of engagement, but no conversions? Everybody loved you. You got clicks, you got comments, your open rate was good, you had click-throughs, etc., but nobody purchased. Maybe they put everything in the cart, they were ready to go, and then they left the cart alone, right? Did you get a lot of engagement, but not as much conversion? And for me, that's where that burnout starts to trickle in, right? Because you're exhausted, you're putting in so much effort, and you are not getting the revenue that matches the effort that you're putting in, right? And then on top of that, it means your revenue is not compounding. Excuse me. So it's not a fix of posting more. A lot of times we just say, okay, I need to go harder. No. A lot of times it says, okay, you know what? Actually, I meet a lot of brand business owners, and I ask them, I say, for Q4, for the holidays, for Black Friday, what have you, what's your plan? And they say, oh, I'm gonna do a giveaway, I'm gonna do a sale. Because 9 times out of 10, when we think about Black Friday, we think about Cyber Monday, we think, okay, we need to have a sale. We need to slash prices 50%, which is fine. That's no harm, no foul. But there's a lot of brands that still make the same money, the same amount, without doing any sales or any slashing of prices or any giveaways, etc. Because that's not the only avenue to it. It's not cheapening your price point, right? You're giving high quality. You deserve to have your price be your price, right? And so it's really about not adjusting your price point, not having to always do a slash of sales to get sales. It's about realigning your marketing on how your audience actually engages with your brand emotionally, Okay. And now I've said a lot about emotion. Okay. And so we're going to get more into that as well. So, but I did say I wanted to explain what organizational debt is and what it's costing you. So, organizational debt is when your business grows way faster than your systems can support. Okay. Are you missing follow-ups? I remember starting out, I could not remember, my DMs were going crazy. And I am an introvert and I get overwhelmed very easily. And I'm like, okay, I have all of these DMs. I have the number of messages that are in my phone or in my email. It is just it keeps growing. It's like 10. And then all of a sudden it's 97 and I'm missing follow-ups. I'm missing money, right? Because I'm getting overwhelmed because I have zero systems to actually support my growth. Maybe I do a beautiful launch, and then nothing happens. I become overwhelmed. One actual really, really good example of this is called the Oprah effect. Now, the Oprah effect is when businesses went on the Oprah show, okay? You got a car and you got a car. And then they go and they get all this visibility and it's beautiful and it's great. And then their website crashes or they can't meet product demand. You're missing money. You're missing follow-ups because your business got a lot more visibility than your systems can actually support. And so then you're having inconsistent launches, right? You're ghosting your audience. You're here on Monday and then we don't see you until the next quarter, 2 months from now, right? Or you're showing up and you're trying to sell to a cold audience. Now, a cold audience is when these people don't know you. They're strangers. These are people walking on the street. They've never heard of your brand. They don't know what you're doing. You're going to have to do a whole spiel and a whole pitch just to get them to understand what it is you're bringing to the table, right? And then you having, like I mentioned before, that burnout, which is low conversions, but you are giving it your all, 10,000%. It's high effort. You're staying up late nights, etc. Low conversions. It's not matching your energy. And so it's not that you're not working hard. It's just that your back end, your systems, the things, everything behind the curtain is not able to carry the weight for you. Right. And so that's the big thing that what organizational debt is. Right. And so what do you have to do with debt? You got to pay it. Right. And then that's what happens. And then we're all just tired. What ends up happening is that we're just all tired. Now, the emotional engagement model, this is my baby. Okay. The layers are relief, affirmation, clarity, and then elevation. Okay. And so this is something that I actually developed years ago when I was working with founders who were doing all the right things, but not seeing any results of it. Right. They're putting in all this beautiful effort and not seeing the conversions that they want to see. Okay. My emotional engagement model. And so visibility without that emotional engagement is just noise. And being on social media, there is a lot of noise. It's just a lot of people talking, a lot of people shouting, just a lot of noise, and you have to be able to cut through the noise. And 9 times out of 10, they say, oh, well, you need content that converts. You need to go viral. You need to, everyone's going viral at this point, and it's more noise, right? It's a lot more noise in being able to cut through it, right? And so this model I developed that came out from just watching brilliant founders pouring their energy into content and to an event. A lot of people are showing up to several, especially before COVID, but are showing up to so many events, physically being present, and the revenue stalls right after the event ends, right after they put that booth up. We're stalling, right? And then burnout happens because now we're like, okay, well, when's the next event? And now I have to keep a booked out schedule. But then if your body is continuing to run that way and you're continuing to have that burnout, your body will shut down on you. And now you're sick. Now you're missing events. And now you're missing revenue. Right. And so what I realized is that they weren't out of ideas. They're out of alignment, right? Their marketing is skipping the emotional sequence that people need to actually take action. So back to my 4-phase model. This maps out the natural way that people move from chaos to clarity and then from clarity to actual conversion, right? So relief is where you're helping your audience exhale. Okay. You're not You're helping them exhale and you're helping calm the noise so that they're able to actually hear your offer. It could be a reel and an email and a voiceover, but you're explaining, not really explaining, but you're addressing their problem and you're calming their panic and their overwhelm, right? And then you have affirmations, right? This is where you're showing them that your solution is here, not just to sell, not just to, it's not a money grab. You're actually here because you understand the problem, and the problem is actually very solvable in a low friction way, right? And so you're saying to them, they're not alone. They should feel heard and seen, regardless if they're sitting in the front row or in the back or in the overflow room, right? They should be able to feel very, very seen. And so to be seen, you don't want that disconnection, right? You want it to be consistent, right? You want to be able to consistently show up for your audience. And so then this is where clarity happens. A lot of clarity has become a buzzword lately, and it's, in my opinion, clarity comes after you're able to provide that relief, right? And so you're able to define what those next steps are. This is where most people are freezing. This is where most people they care, but they're not buying in, right? You have beautiful open rates. Click rates look great, but there's no conversion that's happening. No one is buying. No one is opting in. That clarity is not there. And it's not necessarily clarity on, I don't understand your offer. It's clarity on, I don't know where else to go and why, right? And then you have that elevation, right? And the most times the elevation, we're jumping straight to the elevation. This is going to be your offer. This is the buy now. This is the download now. This is the invitation. And a lot of times when we are talking to an audience, if you're a brand new business owner, if you just started today, everyone is a cold audience. Your first thing that you should be doing is not saying buy now. It's not saying purchase this. It's not that. It's you. There's a cold audience. They need to get to be able to know you, and you have to be able to provide the layers, the relief, the affirmation, that clarity, right? And so most people jump to elevation first, and they say buy now, and the audience is still in survival mode. I don't know you, stranger danger, right? You have to be able to take them from the clarity the relief, all the way from affirmations to, okay, I understand what's going on, and then this is the actual next step that I'm going into. And so when your brand, when your campaign, when your launch plan skips the layers, you're not just missing the vibe or the energy, you're actually accumulating more debt. And we're going to get into that one. And so that accumulating more debt is, like I mentioned before, your emails, they're flopping. No one is answering, no one's replying. You're pouring in money to your ads and they're getting ignored, right? And then even still, you might have a cart set up and your customers are just disappearing and ghosting you mid-cart, right? It's not random, it's misalignment. And so this is how we fix that, right? So, as I mentioned before, misalignment is missed money. Okay. And so to understand what this EEM model, okay, looks like is organizational debt happens, as I mentioned before, when your business is outgrowing your back end, or you're putting in a lot more effort than your conversions are reflecting, right? And so this happens when your campaigns break that emotional journey that's happening, right? So you're asking people to buy when they need to be breathing. Okay. You're posting, but you're not guiding. You're promoting, but your audience is still confused, they're still uncertain, and they're unready to actually act and make a movement. And so the breakdowns, And so those things are the breakdowns, right? So looking at this, excuse me, organizational debt is the actual symptom. So you have cold launches that flop. That's usually because your relief and your clarity is not present, right? You have high engagement but no action. You're probably missing your affirmation piece there. If you are getting abandoned carts, if you're having people sign up but they're not showing up, they're ghosting. It's that affirmation or clarity, right? And you're always in hustle mode. It's that overuse of elevation, right? And so what the EEM model comes in is it's a warm up, right? It's that emotional grounding and that guided steps for what your actual audience needs. And then it's your direct for your affirmation piece, it's also the direct action that's oriented, right? Of where am I going with this? Okay, I feel seen and I know this is the next step, right? And then you being able to rebuild the trust through segmentation and nurturing. This is a big one. A lot of brands, one, don't know what segmentation is, but they're not segmenting. You are talking to every single person the exact same way. We're not a monolith, right? You can't do that. You have to be able to nurture people by understanding how they want to be nurtured. And so that's the biggest piece. That's that affirmation and that clarity. And so with the overuse of elevation and that hustle, a lot of times you're not letting your automations carry that weight. And that's that big piece. And so the the emotional engagement model is really a diagnostics of what your solution should be, right? Because again, even as a consultant, I cannot build campaigns the same way I build for everyone. Everything has to be custom because I need to understand where's the misstep, what's going wrong. So once you start building around that emotional sequence, things don't just feel better, but they convert easier. And so you stop leaking visibility and you're able to grow without burning out, right? That's the big piece. And then you're able to, all that effort that you're putting in, your bank account is matching it, right? Essentially is where we're at with that, right? So going in, are you able to actually, excuse me, not what are you actually missing? So I have a founder, speaking of the client before, she built out her collection 6 weeks straight, right? When I met her, built out this beautiful collection. She worked very, very hard on it because she's physically building her products, designing the whole nine. Again, products are gorgeous. The content was consistent. She scheduling her content out, etc. But when she launched, not a thing. Nothing happened. No sellout. There wasn't a surge because she never gave anyone any relief. Does that sound familiar? Do you have a great product that is beautiful and it's filled with impact and it's going to change the world, etc., but you don't have any momentum? Are you targeting it toward an audience that doesn't know you, especially if you're going gung-ho on just social media? Majority of that algorithm is going to be a cold audience, potentially a cold audience, right? And then there's no warm-up strategy, right? They're cold. I don't know you, stranger danger again. So you have those missed moments for relief. She never gave that. There wasn't any warm-up. There wasn't even any space to say, I see you, right? And you need this. And so this is a very common mistake, and where you're doing everything right, but you're launching cold, right? Where the relief is just not there, and it's triggering. It's triggering, and they need something to feel safe. And when I say feel safe, I mean going back to those brands where you trust. This is the brand I trust. I'm not me personally. Like I said, I bought Dawn dish soap. It's not, I don't vary, but they make me feel safe. I know they're going to get this grease together because they got it together for the ducks. That will always be my reasoning. But if your audience doesn't buy when, excuse me, your audience is not going to buy when they feel overwhelmed. They buy when they feel seen, when they feel soothed, and when they feel supported. And without that first step of relief, they're scrolling right past you. That's just, it doesn't matter if you're viral. It doesn't matter if the product is great. They're going to keep scrolling. And so are you actually missing clarity, right? So again, having the vibe, right? But there's no CTA. You have gorgeous visuals, right? Your captions are beautiful, but there's no direction. There's no conversion. What's the next step, right? You're making people feel seen, but no one is taking action. There's no next step, right? So clarity isn't just about putting the link in your bio. Okay. It's about removing that friction and decision fatigue, right? Okay. Is it too many? Too many offers, there's a lot going on. Or when I come to your, a lot of people have like the link tree, or you have all the buttons. Whoa, this is a lot. Which one am I deciding on, right? It's that decision fatigue, and it's making a lot of friction there, and people are just going to leave, right? Your customer might love you. They might trust you, but they're not going to buy because of that decision fatigue and that friction, right? And so this is where that emotionally engaged leads, they stall. Okay. They want you to act, but your strategy doesn't give them that bridge. Right. And so the other piece, right, is that missing that affirmation, right? That cold audience. You're too quick to pitch. Okay. Your first email out the gate is something to buy, right? Straight to the sale. The second email, another sale. You're still wanting them to buy things. Buy, buy, buy. The third email, you're getting a lot of unsubscribes because they don't want to hear it. They're out of it, right? And you're assuming that they already trust you, right? When you're super quick to selling, you're assuming that you've already built that trust. Thinking just about with audiences and not audiences, thinking about your just relationship with people that you meet, right? People that come off way too strong. Like, back up, I don't know you. I'm not sure what's going on here. I need you to back it, I need you to calm it down, right? So you're skipping that affirmation piece, and there's no moment, there's no story, there's no shared truth, right? Your list isn't converting, not because your offer is wrong, but you never started the relationship, right? That's that big, big piece. And so, of course, we all want the sale. We all want to sell. We're in business. We're putting effort into something. We want to be compensated. But if your audience doesn't feel like you understand them, they're not going to trust your solution. That's just what it is. And so the affirmation is the moment where you're telling your audience that you're not crazy, right? You're in the right place. And that emotional safety is what's going to actually earn the click. And it's not skipping it, right? That's a trust leak, right? And the trust leaks revenue. Okay. Now let's talk about the revenue. Okay. My background is math, science, and technology. But when I say you're leaving money on the table, I like to give you a dollar amount. Okay, so this is going to be based off of if you're bringing in $5,000 a month or per campaign. Okay, you have your layers: relief, affirmation, clarity, and elevation. Okay, if you're missing your cold launches and there's no warm ups, what's that going to look like on your back end when you're looking at your data? You're seeing a 40 to 60% drop in your click and open rates, right? Now, what does that actually convert to? If you're bringing, like, just using $5,000 as a benchmark here, you're losing about $2,000 a month just because you're not providing relief. That is $2,000 left on the table. You only took 15 cents and you left $3 there, right? This is when I say Q4 is about not leaving any money on the table, this is what I'm talking about. If you're missing that affirmation piece, right? You're disengaged. The list is disengaged. They don't really trust you. You are inconsistent in your communications. What you're going to see on the back end is about a 30% lower conversion rate from your warm leads. These are people who know you, right? Because you gave them the relief piece, so you are warming them up, but you're seeing the conversion rates are not matching the amount of effort. And so again, if you have a $5,000 baseline, you're going to be missing about $1,500 a month just because of the affirmation piece, right? That, again, leaving actual dollars on the table, okay? And then clarity. If you're not providing them a clear customer journey of where you're going, where they are now and where you want them to go, or what the end goal is going to be, it's up to a 70% cart drop off, right? You have no follow-up, there's no CTA, etc. Now that in abandoned carts, if you still have a $5,000 baseline, you're missing about $3,500 a month. That's all. Come on now, 5,000, 3,500. That's literally almost double or equivalent, excuse me, to what you're missing, what you're leaving on the table, right? It's time to get everything off of the table, right? And then even with elevation, when you're pitching too fast, pitching too fast, what you're going to see is a high unsubscribe rate. People are leaving, unfollow, just disengagement, whatever it is, but you're going to see a 3 times higher unsubscribe rate. And that's going to translate into about $500 to $1,000 a month in list decay, right? Where people are just leaving you alone, period, point blank, right? And so this is the money that it's actually costing you. Just by missing these layers, right? And so if your list feels good, but it doesn't convert, you're probably skipping that affirmation piece and losing warm buyers, right? When you don't give people clarity, you create that hesitation, right? And that's why you're losing people when they should be buying. And until they've had time to actually, you're missing people because they haven't had time to actually think, and that's costing you money, right? And so, like I said, this is if your baseline is about 5K a month, right? But if you're aiming for 10K, for 15K, think of the money that you're leaving on the table. That's organizational debt. That's the money that you've paid, right? So using the same numbers here. So you are making $5,000 a month, but your organizational debt is $2,000. So how much money did you actually make? Right. And then, right. So you're at $3,000 of potential profit, but you have your product that you created. You have the physical labor that you're putting into. You have the design costs that are coming in. How much money are you actually making because you've just put so much money into debt, right? To pay off that debt. And so if you're having a high abandoned cart rate, you've made $5,000, sure, but you just paid $3,500 in organizational debt. How much money did you actually make? And when we talk about scaling from $5,000 a month to 10,000 to 15,000, every skip step, the money that you already earned, every skip step equals the money that you've already earned, but never collected. You didn't take it. And so that's why I built out that expansion dossier that tells you exactly which layer you're missing and how to stop that leak. Because when we go into Q4 and we launch our campaigns, we're not paying it. We're paying the least amount of debt possible. Okay. Because all of it should be for us and what we need as business owners to scale. Okay. So now you should have your actual expansion dossier out. Okay, so now we're moving right on into the activity portion. I have talked a lot and I've given you a lot of information and a lot of numbers. Okay, and so if you do not have your expansion dossier, feel free to scan that code and fill out that form, and you should get it pretty soon. Because for those of you that do have it, this is a 90-day visibility engine. It's not a workbook. It is not a mood board. Okay. This is not fancy fairy tales or whatever. This is a custom campaign map that is built for what you told me about your vision and your goals and what's currently on your plate and what you're dealing with. Right. And so what I built for you is structured around that emotional engagement model so that every single piece from your landing page to your Instagram content to your TikTok reels, everything works in alignment with how your audience actually makes decisions. Right. And so once you have one clear campaign, it has the emotional energy, it has a strategic overview, it has the clear instructions for every platform so that nothing is being posted or sent just to stay consistent. We're not just posting to be posting, right? That's not what that's just wasted energy and continued debt, right? So everything has a job. Piece of content that you create, every piece of copy that you write, everything has a job and everything moves your people through relief, through to affirmations, to your clarity, and then to your elevation. And this is what makes it convert. So I want you to take a look through your expansion dossier. You'll see your 90-day visibility campaign. It's personalized goals and energy, and then being structured to reduce that organizational debt, and then your Q4 engine. Okay, and so we're going to use it just like one. All right. And so you still can have the QR code here, but I want to give you, yes, it was emailed. Let's see if you, I can look and check for you, but it should be in your inbox. Um, and so what's inside that dossier is your strategic campaign overview, your email and your social instructions, your SEO and ad breakdown. That's a big one. And then you have a 90-day execution roadmap that I wrote for you. And then, of course, a checklist and some final notes. So I'll give you guys a few minutes. And if you have any other questions, or if you don't see it, I can always look around to see. I actually see yours and I'm going to forward it to you right now. Okay. Okay, I saw yours. It was one of the top. So it should be in your, I just forwarded it back to you. So it should be there now. But just take a few minutes and go through the dossier, looking at just seeing how it aligns, right? Of what it and how it resonates. So I'm going to be quiet and let you guys have some relief and be able to look through it. I think I'm gonna put a little timer on and do like 3 minutes or so. I just want you guys to be able to see and how it resonates with you. And this the step-by-step breakdown, that emotional purpose, and that the 5 phases, right? So take a few minutes. Yes, I agree. I agree. Sorry. The comments over here. Mhm. Okay. You guys need some more time. Need a little bit more time. Yeah, no worries. Okay. Perfect timing. Um, okay. So looking at your your dossier, right? Going through that and looking at what phase are you strongest in? Which ones is like, okay, I do that, or I kind of I get that idea, or I have done it. And then which one are you skipping? Right? Maybe you're moving too fast through your sequence or through that journey. And then thinking about where people are falling off, right? And then what's missing between the visibility that you're getting and the conversion that you're needing, right? And so being able to just go through and answer those questions just honestly and saying like, what's this is your current state, right? And then how are we going to move you to your future state? Okay. So what I gave you, it's not just strategies, but the emotion and the energy in those instructions. And so um looking at where I place those relief moments for you, how I frame those clarity points a bit, and then how those phases build into ascension, especially during that 90-day that roadmap of just going from phase one to phase three, four, or two, three, and four. And then asking yourself really of just like, what have I been doing? And what is it that I need to start doing? This is not a bash of like, oh, you've been doing things wrong or anything like that. This is just a moment about bridging your current state to your future state, your current chaos, right? To your future clarity, and using that plan that you've already had in your hand and bringing it into somewhere where you're not fooling with the ah, the burnout, sorry, where you're not dealing with the burnout and you're not dealing with that organizational debt, right? And so bridging that particular gap there. So this is the audit piece of it, right? So thinking about those phases, that you can write this down, you can think about it, etc. But what are you doing now for relief, right? And then where's that gap between what you're doing now and what I might have said? Right? And then where are these things being addressed? Is it in your emails, the landing page copy, etc.? Right? What are you doing for affirmations, that emotional arc, your storytelling, right? To get them to build that trust, right? And then what are we doing for clarity, that journey, that follow up, that nurture sequence, the relationship building, right? The CTAs, the button copy, your instructions, right? Those places where those things are being addressed. And then what are you doing for elevation? Are you waiting? or are you just push, 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 push? Right. So that's going to be your ad copy. That's your timing. That's your launch cadence. Right. Are we warming them up? Or are we just going straight into it? Right. So thinking about what are we doing right now? And then where's the gap that's happening? Give you guys a few moments to just kind of marinate on that. Okay. So looking at the relief, right? What are you doing right now to calm your audience's panic? Right? And not panic as in they're frantic, but if they have a need, you have a product, you have a service, they obviously have a pain point, right? What are you doing to calm them? Not to say, hey, I have the solution, but to say, I see your problem, I understand your problem, and you're calming and you're just making them feel safer to continue listening to you, right? And then like I said, where are you creating that safety at? Where's that safety point for you? So in the dossier, look at your actual email journey and your social story arc, okay? And I gave you that emotional language and that timing to kind of reintroduce yourself to your audience and to your offer, right? And then even in the affirmations piece, how are you making people feel seen? Are you making people feel seen? Do they know you get them, or are you just educating? Right? Are you just talking at them? And so your dossier has dominant emotional anchors and that brand support tactic baked into the core of the campaign, right? And then moving through to clarity, is your next step very clear in every post or every page or every caption? The next step of what's supposed to be happening, where are they going? For me, I know I might get anxiety when I don't know what we're doing. Like, okay, I'm very someone when I travel, I like to have an itinerary. I need to know where I am going and what I'm doing, when I'm resting, when whatever, but that's just my personality, right? And so for that clarity piece, is your next step clear in every post? If you, I gave you landing page instructions and a CTA architecture for every key moment, right? Because people need to understand what that next step actually is. And then for elevation, are you inviting them into your offer at the right time with the right energy? Right? Are you aligned with how they're moving and what they actually need? Right. And so this is the part where you're checking that 90-day roadmap, right? From all and through all of your phases that are built to elevate them from trust to taking action with you, right? And so this is definitely the gap. This is where we're doing that, where you're able to do that audit and see what's missing, and then really just kind of what you're already doing that you're being phenomenal at. If you're really good at the affirmation piece and the story is there, but the relief and that clarity is missing. A lot of time it's the clarity, the segmentation, that nurturing, etc. But if you have those pieces there, this is just a good time to be able to identify those gaps so that we're able to address a solution that's for you, right? A lot of times we're always like, well, this is it. It's not always the same for every person, right? And so being able to kind of identify that piece, right? And so here's the big question, okay? We're moving into the hard piece. If 100 people came through your funnel today, they came to your business, they were introduced to you, etc. They're at your booth, wherever you want to be right now in this scenario. If those 100 people, how many of them would convert? Now think about being in a room of those 100 people. Are you making just the first 5 people that are closest to you feel seen, and everybody in the back is not feeling seen and heard? They're just wandering off and they're lost in the sauce, right? Or do all 100 people feel like they have your undivided attention, right? Of those 100 people, how many of them would convert? And be honest. You don't have to tell me, but you can tell yourself and be honest about that. And then thinking about those numbers and that drop off, right? 60 to 70%. That means you're only getting maybe 40%, 40 people out of the 100, right? 30 people out of the 100. The rest of those 70 people are in the back and they've wandered off, they've left, they've gone to another booth, right? Now, if that's what's happening, if that could be the case, what what's stopping them, or what would stop them from converting? Is it because they don't feel seen? Is it because they don't really know, okay, so after I leave your booth, what am I supposed to be doing? Okay, I got your product. What's next? Right? And so what is stopping them from doing that? But then also, what helps them move through this process a bit faster, right? Thinking about aligning that timing. Are you too slow? Are you moving too quickly? We want that just right timing. And that's going to really be based off of that behavior piece. And so if 100 people came through that funnel, met you today, how many of those people are going to convert? And just be honest with your product and your service, but also your current system that's in place. To convert all 100 of those people, do you have to manually do it? Do you need to manually go and shake hands with every individual person, look them in the eye and talk to them individually? That's going to take a lot of time. So that person number 100 and person 98 and so forth, you might have moved too slowly for them, right? And so now I want you to look at that dossier and look at your campaign energy, right? Look at days 1 through 3. Okay. What's different in the system that I gave you, and what's already structured better that than excuse me, not that, better than how you're currently moving, right? So look at what I gave you and look at what you're, and then think or look at what you're already currently doing and how you're currently moving, right? What are the differences in that, right? Because your current state is telling you the actual truth. And the dossier that I built out for you is just showing you the alternative, what you can be doing. Not you need to work long nights and burn both ends of the candle. This is an alternative to how you're able to leverage your energy a lot better, and then to remove that burnout, right? And go forward. So this essentially is a big mirror moment, what I like to call a mirror moment. And so write it down. What came up? What did you see? And what needs to change before Q4 hits, right? We're launching campaigns in Q4, right? Our only strategy is not going to be slashing prices. That's not the only strategy that's going to happen. We're not just throwing out a promo code and hoping for the best, right? And if you're open to it, I'd love to hear what you guys came up with, and I might share a few. I know I'm getting some comments over here or on this side. Um, but yeah, of just how are you feeling with it? Okay. Yes. Relief, definitely coming in with and just being a little bit softer. A lot of times we want to rush it. And a lot of times we're rushing it because we're launching and we're running behind the ball, right? So we're running behind the ball. Everything has to move at a breakneck speed, right? And so being able to have that time to provide that relief of what they're doing, right? Yes, the a lot of us are, we are moving so fast, we are going straight to that elevation piece, straight to the elevation piece. And that hurts us a lot. That's where we're missing that $1,500. That's where we're missing that 200,000, $2,000, right? We're leaving money on the table because we've moved way too fast, right? Way, way, way too fast. Hmm. So yeah, I don't want to spend too much time on this part, but this is definitely a big mirror moment of where are you in your actual system? Where are you in your burnout? Right? If 100 people came to you today and your immediate feeling is overwhelmed, you're like, ooh, 100 people. This is This is where that emotion, that EEM model needs to come in, right? This is where that structure and that system happens. If your nervous system is already having a reaction to just thinking about 100 people standing in front of you, right? Then that's going to be that piece and that problem there. Okay, so what does it look like? What happens when your systems are actually aligned? And so these results didn't just happen because people worked harder. It happened because of actual strategy, not a pretend plan or some generic system that were just, it's generic, honestly, right? It happened because it was built around a strategy around how humans actually make decisions, right? If you look at how social media is now with the more progressive generations and progressive how buyers have um, evolved, right, emotionally, you have to make that connection, right? You have to treat people as humans and not just a car salesman, right? They're smelling it a mile away and they don't want to be sold to, right? So your strategy has to be built around how people, real people, the people that are in your ecosystem, how they actually make decisions. And then having each campaign and each system not just there to be posting, right? And so whether it's a service provider or a product-based brand, the core issue is still the same. It's that organizational debt. And the fix is having that emotional engagement model there to provide and to restructure for alignment, right? And so that's what we built with that dossier, right? And so this is what happens when your system is actually aligned. For here, we stopped guessing and finally had a strategy that made sense. And so that's I stopped running behind the ball, right? That's the being able to have an email list. Now, a lot of the times when we're seeing numbers like these, I'm not gonna lie to you, they have an established email list, right? But from here, we are able to see that, okay, just by setting up a campaign, an email campaign that is nurturing, that hits all of those emotional points, you're able to bring in a lot more revenue in a significant amount of time, right? And being able to use those emotional anchors where you're able to see that boost of engagement, but the boost of engagement converts, right? So you have that 30% open rate, but did it convert? And so that's what we're looking at. And in this case, of course, it did convert. And then being able to having repeat customers, right? That's that piece where you're able to bank on income, right? That's when your side hustle or your small business or whatever you want to call it, right? Solopreneur, freelance, whatever. But that's when it becomes, or it's able to rival with that 9 to 5. Everybody wants the 9 to 5 because it's a consistent and reliable source of income, right? But when we're able to address that organizational debt, when we're able to move through that emotional model, emotional engagement model, we're able to see the increase in rebookings, repurchases, engagement for the next campaign and the next product, right? And it's not just let me talk to people when I'm trying to sell, right? It's also being speaking and nurturing that relationship throughout the quiet times as well, right? So these are real results across industries, and this is built with the foundation of that engagement, that emotional engagement model and campaign structure, right? So bringing your actual dossier to life. Okay, bringing it actually to life. So there's two options here on how to be able to work with me. Okay, I can come in and within about 30 to 45 days, depending on the initial setup process and getting all the assets in hand, We can do a quick setup and implement for your campaign, your Q4 campaign, either based off of the dossier that you have now, or we're making a few tweaks after our strategy call. And so this starts at around $497 and can range depending on if you need website development, app ads, and things like that, to about $997, right? And so this one, I am setting you up for success. That's the setup. No, no gimmicks, no anything of that nature. I'm setting everything up for you, and you're in the approval process of this is what I want, this is what I need, and we're going forward, right? Now, I have the 90-day partnership, right? And so for the War Room, it's not going to be $1,500 a month. It's $997. But this is a full strategic guidance and implementation, right? For a full 90 days. Okay. This is where I walk with you. We're implementing it phase by phase by phase. When there's questions, I'm there, right? We're looking at the data. We're able to make any tweaks or pivots that need to happen, because a lot of times what we plan for a particular success that's in our head, and what actually happens is something that's more, right? And so being able to capitalize on the overflow, right? And so we're able to, like I said, implement it phase by phase over the next 90 days. We're talking about automation, launch support, automation, and that segmentation piece as well. This is for you if you want and you need that accountability, if you need the speed, because so help us God, we always, something pops up, right? Where we missed the CEO day, or I call them CEO days, where we've missed a moment, or we just really need to take a nap, right? And so now we're falling behind a little bit. And then we wake up from that nap, now we're beating ourselves up because now we feel like we have to chase that ball, right? Or we have to chase the launch, etc. This is honestly where you're able to get the strategic eyes all the way through, right? And now with the strategic partnership, I only take five partner clients every quarter, right? Because it is a partnership. This isn't I have 50,000 people that I'm working with. And so every person that I work with strategically, they need to be seen, they need to be heard, and it's personal, right? This is just what it is, and this is how I work. So every quarter I'm able to take about 5 clients that get the deeper support, right? Because I come in and I'm essentially kind of like your CMO, right? Of, okay, here's the marketing, this is the data, here are the reports, this is where we should tweak, here are your open rates. I'm helping you understand your actual data, right? Because the data is telling a story. I'm able to help you understand what that heat map looks like, to say, okay, we need to tweak the design here and here, right? Or we need to have our certain content with a different caption here, etc. And being able to track where your audience is actually coming from. Are they coming from your Facebook account? Are they coming from your TikTok? Or is your email list really carrying the weight, right? About 20 to 30%, if you're optimizing your email list, about 20 to 30% of your revenue should be coming from your email list, right? I have a client that, it's funny because every time Instagram goes down, we designed it to where we send out a sale. We say Instagram is down, 15% off everything in the store. The first time we did that, $16,000 that same day. It was crazy, but also really, really cool, right? And so being able to leverage that email list, etc. Worked with another client in the tech space, the SaaS company, where just being able to position ourselves better at our conferences, we were able to even launch, not only we're getting leads and things of having that follow-up for the sales team so that they're able to get those consistent leads, because they're only, at the time, this particular company was only sending about 2 to 3 people to a conference. And so I was like, okay, you only have 3 people at this conference. This conference has, 10,000 people showing up. There's no way that they're going to get everyone. And there's no way that you only have so many hours in the day. Your sales team can only take how many actual sales, coffee meet, coffee dates, etc., to land those deals. There's only a finite amount of time. How do we continue to nurture? How do we do the follow up? How do we continue to build that relationship and build the trust, right? And so that particular SaaS company was one of my flagship company clients, but we were able to develop a system to where we were able to close or shorten the lifespan, the life cycle or the customer journey, to where we're able to get them from awareness or that relief point to purchase point about a month sooner than what they were doing beforehand. And that was just having a simple system of being able to do the follow-ups, and it's not manual. Even if you have a sales team, the sales team should not be manually having to do these follow-ups every single time. And so even in that space and time, I think we generated over this in 1 quarter, we generated an additional $2 million from though in that quarter, just from we did less events and more follow-up. Right. And so we were able to also have those more intimate moments with those clients that they were meeting with. And so 90-day strategic partnership, right? It's one-on-one. We're working with everything, and you're getting those strategic eyes there. But also with that campaign setup, it's the systems. If you need the system set up for you, that is what I'm here for. Right. And it's based off of what your goals are and what your audience needs are. And so we still look at who is your audience and what are their needs, right? A lot of people say my audiences are, women from 25 to 40 who want self-care. That is a very, very general and broad audience. We need to break that down and actually build an audience profile. Everyone says to niche. Everyone says niche, 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 niche. No, what you actually need is a built out audience profile. And so with that setup, we still are building out the profile. We're still having the setup, etc. So the 90-day partnership is everything in that campaign setup and more. And so, like I said, for the war room, it's going to be $997 a month there. And so if you are ready to stop leaking revenue, okay, if you are ready to stop leaving money on the table, you can scan this QR code and you can go ahead and sign up. There's only 5 partnerships available, like I said, but you can go ahead and 1, claim your spot. But in 2, let's get the rest of the money, right? If you're leaving $2,000 on the table, we need to go ahead and get all of that. Even if it's 500, we need to go ahead and get all of that. We need that structure and the systems to go ahead and move forward. And so that's the QR code. You can go ahead and give that a scan. Pause a little bit because I know I see on this other piece here. Okay, so if you haven't scanned it yet, there is the code will come back up, but I do want to take some time just for questions a bit. And so commonly asked questions, and I'll give you guys some time to ask me some questions as well. But a lot of the times is I don't have an email list. That's the big one. I don't have an email list. How do I start? That's fine, right? The expansion dossier, as you already seen, it does include that beginner safe visibility. Yes, of course. And if you if you don't have that email list, it still includes beginner safe visibility steps, right? So at the end of the day, you still need that landing page. You still need the system set up to even start generating. And that's why we're starting today and not in November, right? And so to go ahead and continue to build that email list. And there's ways and tactics and organic strategies to continue to build that email list. And so that's one piece. And then, is this only for product-based brands? No. The emotional engagement model works for any offer that is built on trust and transformation. That's it. Any offer that's built on trust and transformation, because at the end of the day, this is an emotional engagement. Are your clients humans? It's built on trust and transformation. And now this is the big one, right? I always get this one, is how fast will I see the results? Now, depending on your execution, how fast you get your assets to us, et cetera, et cetera. But most see clarity and traction within 3 weeks of execution, right? We want to be able to see what's going on and get the data and those results immediately, right? And then the last one, and which is the one you heard my phone go off, the one I just saw, is being able to customize the dossier. Yes, yes. The dossier is not in stone. It's a mirror, right? And so what do you want these things to look like? And if you do even if you book a setup or a startup plan, we optimize it all together, right? And so that's the big piece. These are the most frequently asked questions in there. And so the timeline depends on you, right? Clarity starts the minute that you stop guessing. And so this is the time to stop guessing and stop leaving money on the actual table. And so what did we learn today? We learned a lot, but we learned what our visibility strategy and where it's leaking, right? And then we're learning how organizational debt is showing up in our campaigns. How much money do you think you're actually leaving on that table? Right? That was the big piece there. And then we learned how that emotional engagement model, EEM, realigns with trust and timing, right? To really align with who you are targeting and who your actual audience is. And then what did this dossier actually reveal about the next 90 days? Right? What did it actually reveal about your next 90 days and your system going forward? And so, and then what to do next if you want to actually implement, right? And I know you do. This is the time to actually implement, because every day that you don't, you're losing money. Every day that you wait, that's more money on the table, right? More money, right? Organizational debt does not just happen once a year. It happens every single launch. Every time you are giving more energy and less conversions, right? Every single time, this is how much money you are losing and you are leaving on the table, right? And so that is what we learned today. Again, that QR code is there for you to scan and go ahead and lock in your spot there. And so your next step is to execute with actual support. Okay, lock in your Q4 campaign support now. There is literally no reason. You wait tomorrow, that's more money, right? You wait 3 more weeks, that's more money on the table, right? And so this is the time to lock in for that Q4 campaign support. Now, if you want that partnership, there's only 5 partnerships left. 4 partnerships left, right? There's only a few spots that are available for the quarter. If you want to partner now, but you miss out on those 5 spots, you have to wait until Q1. And so this is the time. This is not the time to wait. This is not the time to second guess, right? This is the moment to reduce your organizational debt. There's no reason for you to be making a 5K baseline, but you have to pay back $2,000 in organizational debt. There's no reason for that, right? And so, again, if you want to connect with me, I am Taylor Baker, the award-winning strategist. I have generated over $7 million in revenue. And if you would like to connect with me, here is my email, here is the website, and on all platforms, my handle is @Innovation Consultant. It has been a complete blast to be here and chat with you guys, and to just work with and work through a few things with you all, in the expansion dossier. Again, your next step is to execute with support. That's the big piece. You did nothing wrong, but what we were not going to do is go into Q4 with burnout. Okay? We're not leaving any money on the table. Grab your spots now. I wish you all well, and I will see at least 2 people for the partnership now. And you guys grab your spots and bare minimum, get your campaign support. See you guys later.